Thank you so much for joining us today. So let's get started. Okay, so are you in the right room? How many of us have started the year with grand plans? There's nothing we're not going to do this year, is there? But now you've got deadlines dragging, energies dipping, and your team, if you've got one, might be a little bit off track. If that sounds familiar to you, then yes, you're in the right room, definitely. Because in the next half an hour or so, we're going to give you some tools that you can use today, this week, to turn quarter four into a win. And they're tools you can use time and time again. They're ones that will help you reset, refocus, and embed habits that will carry on into the next year. So I know what you're thinking, or maybe you're not. Who are you? Who are you to tell us all of this? So let's introduce ourselves. So I'm Tracy Holland. I'm the smiley one there in in the park for some reason. My business is called Reforge Change, and I help leaders and teams make change doable, not daunting. And that means that they can stay aligned, deliver on the goals they set without slipping back into old habits. Joe?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joanne, and my business is Smart Support for Business. I help business owners to build balanced businesses that add to their life, not take away from it, because a lot of business owners get caught in the trap of the business running them, and I'm really passionate about turning that around. So I focus on three key areas, which are focus, culture, and mindset.
Thank you. And we're here. We've decided to do this webinar because we know that quarter four can be brutal. The best teams can drift off track at this time of year, and you're not doing anything wrong. It's just like the natural cycle of the year. The clocks go back, it's dark, people are tired, priorities start to blur, and suddenly it's December and you're scrambling to get everything done for that crucial year-end target.
But the great news is that it doesn't have to be like that. So, over the next 30 minutes, we're going to give you a handful of simple, practical tools that you can use this week to reset your team, refocus your energy, and finish this year really strongly. So, our promise is that you're going to leave with some clear, doable steps to get you back on track for the year end, and not just the theory, but in real things that you can put into practice straight away. So let's do a bit of a reality check. Why do so many of us struggle with quarter four? I mean, Tracy's obviously mentioned a couple of the obvious things. The weather's changing, isn't it? I know, Tracy, you put a post out about how much you hate winter, but the days are shorter. The holidays feel like a long time ago, and all of that can affect both our mindset, but also our energy levels. And when people are tired, let's face it, motivation will dip, which means your momentum slows. So, in terms of business, this can have a massive impact on your success. Firstly, the projects that you were making progress on, they start to drag. What felt urgent and easily achievable in September suddenly feels now out of reach. And definitely, by the time we get into November, December just does not feel deliverable. It doesn't feel deliverable. So secondly, priorities can get a bit fuzzy. Everyone's busy, but not always on the right things. And I think I put a post out on LinkedIn about that. Being busy isn't the same as being effective. So it's not always working on those right things. And the people that I work with, I know are a lot of accountants, and I know Debbie's here today. She works with a lot of accountants, and they definitely fall into this trap at the end of the year. As it gets closer to the end of the calendar year, it's also getting closer to the end of tax return deadlines. So all their focus goes on delivering the deliverables. So instead of learning from last year, they seem to repeat that same cycle over and over again, which is a really sad thing. But be honest, those of you on the call, how many of those things feel familiar to you, no matter what you do and what your business is? So let's start with you now. I know a couple of you, but let's look at you as a business owner or even a leader. You've all got leadership roles, and if you're spending time caught in that firefighting cycle and you're busy working in your business, delivering the best product or the best service all of the time, then not only does this mean that it can feel overwhelming, but actually the business or even your job, your role is running you. And I think, I keep using the word business, but I am aware that it's the same if you're in a senior position in a business. You still have these same things that you feel everything is on top of you and everything's overwhelming. So it means you're busy working on the things that you think you should, because they're the deliverables, but you're not necessarily focusing on what matters the most or consciously taking meaningful action. Your head's full of a dozen different things. You've got things that need to be done, and so there's more stress trying to remember everything that's in your head. And we've all done it, haven't we? Woke up at 3 a.m. and thought, oh, I need to do that. I'll remember to do that in the morning, and then the morning comes and you think, oh, what was that I remembered at 3 o'clock this morning? But it does mean that your sleep's disturbed, and you're gonna undoubtedly drop a ball or two, and you're gonna try juggling too many things. So what I want to share here is a 3 simple step exercise that you can do today to help you to focus on what matters the most. So those things in your head, please, if you haven't already got one, write a task list, a to-do list, whatever you want to call it. Brain dump everything that is going through your head that you need to do, be that now, and no matter how big or small, brain dump it. And then when you've got that big list, I want you to circle just the top 3. So we're talking about Q4. You can't do more than 3 things. So circle the top 3 things that will move you forward in your business or your role within this last quarter of the year, the critical things. Then with everything else, I want you to take it and use this matrix in the middle, which is the 4 Ds: do, delay, delegate, or ditch. So you need to delegate the urgent stuff. If it needs to be done but can be done by someone else, then delegate it. If you've got people around you in your team or you employ people, get them doing stuff to help you, so that you can then focus on the really high importance and high urgency stuff. If it's stuff that isn't necessarily as urgent but is important, then just delay it. Make a timeline and make a decision to do it later on. And let's be honest, I think we're all ladies on this call, but anyway, let's be honest. I'm talking to sort of Tracy. Is we need to kind of look at ditching the stuff that's not important, because we've all got that stuff on our to-do list, those nice ideas. And Tracy, I'm looking at you nodding because I know you're the world's worst at having loads of great ideas, but they don't all have to be followed through on. So excuse me, delegate, delay, or ditch the things that aren't in those top 3 priorities. Now let's think about then the overwhelm, because when we're overwhelmed, we talked about energy, didn't we? And the battery there is showing depleted, and that's what happens. And this is where we're at. Most people in Q4, they get colds, they do things like that because they're running on lower power. But to notice your own energy is really important. So most people have got certain times of the day where they're more productive than others, when they're more sharp or when they're more creative. So work out what that is for you. And if you don't know, I would suggest start to try and pay attention to where you feel most, it's called being in flow, but actually where do you feel more energized? Where is your best working hours? Now I know 10 till probably 2 or 3 are my key hours. So I try and do all of my coaching within that time, any of the creative thinking. But protect those high energy windows for the tasks that really matter the most. And if you do have tasks that drain your energy, because we've all got to do it, haven't we? There's always bits of our roles, no matter whether it's a business owner or an employed role, where we just go, oh, I really don't like doing that. Then just do it in small chunks, because otherwise you're draining your battery consciously. And once you've done a small chunk, then go and do something that energizes you. And like I said, just create those windows of time and be really ruthless about giving yourself time to recharge your batteries, particularly while the nights are shorter. If you enjoy being outside, go outside when it's daylight. Don't wait till the end of the day when it's too dark and too miserable and you just want to climb in your pajamas and get into bed. So when you combine both the focus filter and managing your energy, then you're not just being busy, but you're going to be more effective. And once you've got that clarity that you need, then you can bring that to your team, which then brings us on to the next tool. So, Tracy.
Thanks. I think that's so important, Jo. Just wanted to circle back to what you said there about watching your own energy levels. And I do find if I don't get out for a walk in the daylight, my energy is just like on the floor. So carving even just 10 minutes to get outside while it's light does the world of good for me and my energy levels and my ability to get on with things. So class recommendation.
And the reality
there.
is your energy feeds into your team's energy. So
Absolutely.
is vital. So sorry, interjected that.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So I want to talk you through the quick alignment reset, and it's a tool that you can do in 10 minutes, and I promise it is just 10 minutes. So it's a simple check-in, and you can do it with your team. If you're a team manager or a leader, you could do it this week. Honestly, it would be so simple. And it's around asking 3 questions, because 3 is our favourite number in Joe, apparently. So the first question is, what are our top 3 priorities this month, this quarter, or this period? And it's really important you actually go and ask your team, because this isn't about catching anyone out or trying to tell them that they've got the wrong priorities. It's about getting everyone on the same page and making sure you've got a shared understanding. So if you ask them what they think the top priorities are, just ask and then listen, because you might be really surprised what they come out with. You as a leadership team or you as the manager might think one thing's the most important while your team's busy doing something else somewhere else. And that's not because they're willfully doing the wrong things. It's because obviously it wasn't really clear to them what the most important priority was. So a really short, open conversation can surface the differences between what you believe is important and what your team are actually working on, and get everyone aligned really quickly. It's really important, though, to emphasize that you want them to be honest and that you trust them. You are welcoming different answers, because clarity and making sure everyone's on the same page is more important than them being right. We're not doing a game of trying to guess what's in your leader's head, which I've fallen foul of in roles gone by. This is a real honest conversation about what's the most important things that we've got to deliver, and does everybody know what they are? The second question is, does everybody know what their role is in delivering it? Because this is not about micromanaging, it's about making sure everybody feels clear and confident on what they own, where they can support others in the team, and where they might need help and how to get that help. So one team I worked with assumed that the deadlines were clear, but we had 2 people working on the same thing in slightly different ways, and we had one guy over there who was working on something completely different. So it was really unclear what our deadlines, what our key deliverables were. So a conversation around how does what I'm doing link into those priorities is really important, and it has an added benefit. As well as reducing wasted effort and frustration, it can really help your teams to get rid of and manage confidently unnecessary or low priority requests. So we've all worked in those places, haven't we, where, oh, could you just do this for a moment? Can you just look at this for me? Have you got 5 minutes? That absolutely derail progress and stop people working on the most important things. And as Joe said, there's a difference between being busy doing all the things and actually working on the things that are important. So if you've been really clear and your team are really clear, they can have that confidence to say, actually, that's not something that's a priority for the team at the moment. I'm going to be carrying on working on this. And that gives them the option to do that. And they definitely will thank you for that as well. And then the third thing is what's blocking progress. So this is your chance to uncover obstacles before they turn into fires, basically. And again, really encourage honesty. So it could be anything from unclear instructions, missing approvals, tech glitches, or even low team morale. So I once saw a developer completely stuck on a project, and he'd been stuck for weeks because he was waiting for input from another department, but he hadn't told anybody. So just 10 minutes of saying, has anyone got any blockers, could have saved him probably weeks of frustration and actually really moved that project along. So the key to all of this is to create a safe, blame-free space where people can feel comfortable flagging those blockers, because it's not just about surfacing the problems. As the leader or the manager, it's your responsibility to help remove them as well. Sorry about that, but it is. So that might mean you having tricky conversations when dependencies are failing, or realizing that a lag in decision making might actually be on you. And that's okay, because the point's not perfection, is it? It's action. It's about making a change. So as using Joe's tool that she went through with us, ask yourself, can you delegate some decisions to stop you being the bottleneck? Can you empower your team to move forward without having to wait on you all the time? When you take ownership to unblock obstacles, the momentum keeps rolling, and then the frustration doesn't carry on into the next week or the next quarter, or at the point we're at now, into the next year. So that's it. 3 questions, 10 minutes, and suddenly everyone's pulling in the same direction again. Now, I'm just sharing with you here my full 7-step alignment reset. So I'm not going to run through all that today, you'll be thankful to hear, but those 3 that I've pulled out are the ones that create the biggest and fastest impact. So I'm going to be doing a deep dive into the full alignment reset framework in an upcoming masterclass, and I'll send you details about that after today's session. But those 3 are the crucial ones that you could apply straight away. So the question is then, how do we stop ourselves getting into a position where the same issues are coming up time and time again? We all know that trope, don't we? The definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result. And how many times have you done that? I can put my hand up and say quite a lot. So this final tool is about making sure we don't just survive Q4, but we learn from it. So most teams finish the year, celebrate or collapse, and then dive into January without ever stopping to ask, what should we take forward? And actually, what should we leave behind? So I recommend using a simple learning loop. You'll be pleased to hear it's not about a long strategy day, because let's face it, who's got the energy for that in December? None of us. It's about building a short, repeatable cycle into the end of each year or the end of each quarter or the period. So here's how it works. The first step is to do a review. So take some time to look back. What did we achieve versus what we planned? Take a few minutes to think about the quarter or the year. And don't just glance at outputs, think about the bigger picture. What did we actually set out to achieve, and what happened on the ground? Where did we exceed expectations, and where did we fall short? And again, it's not about assigning blame, it's about just seeing the reality clearly. So a discussion around that can help the team pause, reflect, and gain some perspective. And recognise those wins as well, because they can often get forgotten in the melee of scrambling to the year end and just crawling our way through to the Christmas break. The next step is to extract. So pull 1 or 2 lessons, don't go overboard. The tool I like to use is stop, start, continue. So ask, what should we stop doing? Like, where did we get ourselves in a pickle? What should we start doing? What would have been a better way to do something that we could try next time? And then what should we continue doing? What's working? And we definitely want to do that again. And remember, it's not just about tasks, it's about the way the team works together. So which processes, habits, or ways of communicating help the team? What cause friction, delays, or stress? And the focus here is some actionable insights you can carry forward, lessons that matter, not a laundry list of complaints, which is what often puts leaders off starting this conversation in the first place. So the way you facilitate that is thinking about where things have got wrong. How do we turn that into an action? How do we turn that into a stop, a start, or a continue, rather than just everyone moaning and then nothing changing for the next period? And then the final part of this tool is to apply it. So pick one practical change to put into action straight away. Could be a new way of running meetings, maybe clarifying some responsibilities, thinking about how you set deadlines, or improving handoffs between team members or different teams. And the idea is to make one small concrete adjustment that directly addresses the lesson you've just extracted. And even little tiny shifts do compound over time. And by taking action right away, the team starts building better habits before the next quarter even begins, which is got to be a win all round, hasn't it? So when I talked about thinking about the how as well as the what do I mean by that? So I once worked with a team that on paper was hitting every target. I was part of this team actually, and I have the war wounds from it. Revenue was up, projects were delivered, deadlines were met, and from the outside it looked like we were operating optimally. We were a brilliant team, but internally the how was absolutely killing us. So leaders were pushing hard on us, the communication was tense when it existed, and the energy and the morale were just awful. Team managers were burning out, team members were burning out. We were accomplishing the goals, but it was totally at the cost of the staff, their trust, their energy, and the morale. And by the next time the quarter rolled around, the team members were already worn down, resentful, and definitely less effective because we were carrying the bruises from the last push into the next cycle. So that's why the learning loop isn't just about what you've achieved, what your outputs are, what you've made live. It's about how you achieve it as well. So during that stop, start, continue phase, think not just about outcomes, but on ways of working. Because if you look at only the what, you risk winning battles but losing the war. The insight that you gain from how you've achieved things is what stops you from repeating the same mistakes, even when your numbers look good. The power here is consistency, because I talked about little wins compounding. So the more often you do this, if you build it into the end of each quarter or the end of each period, your team gets used to thinking about what they've been doing in a really analytical way, and they're much more likely to reflect on what could have been done better, and they'll feel that psychological safety of being able to raise issues honestly and without blame. So they'll become sharper, faster, and avoid falling into the same traps in the future.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Tracy, isn't it? I think that getting that culture right is so important to make sure that
Yeah.
you bring a solution and you get them thinking about solutions rather than blame. I think for me that's one of the key things. But I love that feedback loop, and I know Debbie will love the stop, start, continue, because that's definitely something that her organisation are big on as well. So, but let's pull it all together. And Orion, I know you've put a question in the chat. We've got a section for questions in a second, so we'll come back to that one in a moment. But just let's pull it all together for those of you that are on the call. So we've walked you through those 3 simple but really powerful tools. So first was the focus and energy filter, so cutting through the noise, cutting down that busy mind and getting crystal clear on the few things that are really going to matter particularly as we're coming towards the end of quarter 4. So what are the things that really matter? The energy filter, thinking about making sure we've got our energy used in the right way, and we're thinking proactively about protecting our energy. Then we looked at the alignment reset to take those priorities and make sure that your whole team knows them and owns them and is moving in the same direction. And this is where Tracy and I always come together so well on, because there's so much synergy in what we talk about. But finally, that learning loop, make sure that when you finish a period, particularly the year, that you stop and you look back in that rearview mirror and look at the lessons that you want to either stop, start, continue. What things don't you want to repeat? What things would you like more of? Because we don't want you to be having those same struggles next year. But here's the bigger picture. Clarity leads to alignment, which leads to learning. So that's the cycle, and that's how we can help you to finish this year strong, but also start the next one more focused, excuse me, and working more smartly. So now our challenge to you is simple. Don't try and do it all at once. And I can't say that enough. Please do not try and do it all at once. Pick one tool that's going to make the biggest difference for you this week and try it. So whichever one of those tools resonates, go and use it and apply it, because momentum, as Trace said, doesn't come from big plans. It comes from the small actions that you actually do take. These tools are designed to help you to do exactly that.
Does anyone have any questions? I think Orion does.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry, I just knew I was going to cough. So Orion's question was, when folks are under pressure, they tend to default to muscle memory, which is not always the desired approach or priorities, and has asked any ideas on how to address this. So I'll let you go first, if that's all right, Tracy, as to whether there's any practical things, because I've got some probably explanations and deeper things, but is there anything sort of quick and practical that you could suggest?
Yeah, just having some kind of common vocabulary around when people are slipping back into those sort of automatic ways of behaving. And by really thinking about not just the outputs, but how we got there, having that openness, and I know Joe's going to talk about this, but I do recommend this as well. Having a way of identifying in your teams what are your strengths and what are your behaviour signals when you are operating under pressure. So some kind of session, a facilitated session, which Joe will probably talk about a bit more, around what are the sort of different personality types, different ways that we have of handling stress, and then being able to watch out for each other, identify it in yourself, identify it in your colleagues, and help to overcome those sort of automatic reactions to be able to break the cycle of continually falling back into those same traps. I don't know if you want to pick that up, Joe, and explain it more from your
Yeah.
psychological background.
Yeah, I absolutely was going to sort of pick up on most people don't understand what that muscle memory is and where it's coming from and how they're reacting and why they're reacting, more importantly. So for me, it is about that personality bit, but it's not just looking at, a lot of companies will bring in things like disc profiling, which is behavioral, and that's great, and that's a really great starting point for helping communication and allocating roles and responsibilities. But if you're really wanting to start to support people in, their roles, to be more aware of what is their muscle memory, what is their default strategy when faced with too many things, what is their coping strategy when they are feeling overwhelmed, it's, if you can help them understand how they show up when they're at their best, but more importantly how they show up when they're at the worst. So it's about giving them that awareness and utilizing that. So again, Tracy and I talked about, we give you tools, and there are loads of personality tools out there, but for me it's about having that facilitation, and I would say that because that's what I do. But there is no point having the measures, having the reports, if you don't then go on and use them and embed them and using them in the best possible way, and as Tracy made reference to, support each other by understanding, okay, look, you're showing up like this, because most people don't know when they're getting a bit shirty or a little bit frustrated or their tone's changing or any of those things, because it's all, as Orion referenced, it's muscle memory, it's internal, it's coping strategy, it's psychology, it's wiring in the brain. So that's kind of giving you a feel for, hopefully, a strategy that you can approach. And I've just seen Lisa's put also a question in. So again, I'm going to come to you, Tracy, on this one, because this probably sounds like this, but when the project is running behind due to inaction from external partners rather than your actual team, what tips do you have for addressing this? And that's why I'm coming to you, because I think you've probably got more direct reference experience to reference, if I can get my teeth in.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tricky, isn't it? Particularly if you're working in a collaboration with other organisations that might have different priorities. It is really about agreeing what are those shared objectives and what are your responsibilities. Is there a problem with what they've agreed to undertake? Is there a capacity issue? Is there some capability issue? Do the deadlines need looking at? Are there bits where you could chunk the work up in a different way? Is there a way that you could come together to understand how that's having an impact? So it's really about having those open discussions. We don't want to get to contracts. We don't want to get to escalation routes if we can help it. It's about understanding, well, if we're going to achieve this, how are we going to get there? And is there something we can do to support? Is there something that we can do to adjust? Could we dial back on some of the things that you're trying to do? Are you trying to do everything? Is everything that you're trying to deliver within that part of your contract, your part of the contract, is all of that of equal importance? Or are there things that will actually really move the dial, that will really make a difference to the progress that we're making as a combined collaborative? In which case, can we help to prioritise some of those things? So it's really thinking about, as a joined up partnership, what is really going to make us the biggest progress. I mean, Lisa, we used to talk about it, didn't we, in project management terms of like your critical path, but it is really like, what are the things that are on the critical path? So for example, I'm working in an organisation at the moment, and they've been working on a project for over 2 years, and they made very, very little progress. They've been absolutely flat out, but they've been doing loads and loads of work that hasn't actually moved the dial at all. When I went in, the first question I asked is, what are we supposed to be delivering? What's our measure of success? And how much of the work that we're doing at the moment is actually contributing to that measure of success? And how much is stuff that's not really moving that in any way, shape, or form, and what of that could we strip back? Similarly to how Joe explained, what could we stop doing? What could we delay? What could we delegate to someone else? What could we just do in a different way? And what are the critical key things that we need to get done? So it's about having those open conversations, offering support, and really agreeing what the things are that are going to move the dial on that project, and make sure that those are the things that get the focus and the priority. I hope that answered the question.
I think that was brilliant, Tracy. And I think what I was reflecting on sitting here with my sort of business head on is that actually it's all the same stuff. It doesn't matter whether it's internal, external. It's about, seek to understand where, if there are issues, seek to understand what is going on first. Then it's about what are the expectations, whose expectations, what are the expectations, and being clear, because often in any project there's a lack of clarity somewhere. But for me, it's always taking it back to the why. What's this project designed to do? And so your question, what are we here for? I think that's the best place to start, whether that's with your own internal team or whether it's an external project, is actually what are we here for? What is it that we are trying to achieve with this? And what's the bigger purpose and the bigger message, I think. So, but I think that Lisa's put thanks. So I think you've answered the question for her. So that's good. So
I would say, though, it's one of the most difficult bits of it's one of the most difficult and most frustrating and hardest problems to solve, is when you're relying on somebody else. I'm not pretending it's easy, but there are ways that you can try and agree those those priorities, but it is difficult, and particularly if it's another organization, they're not going to be as open to telling you when they're having problems. So the first time you often find out about something not going right is when something doesn't get delivered, and by then it can be too late. So it's about setting up in your sort of operating model, in the way that your governance works for that project, in the way that you have communication in that project, is ways to build that psychological safety between the partners as well. So it doesn't feel like they're throwing stuff over the fence, or they just haven't delivered it and now you're stuck trying to pick those pieces up. So it's about how you set that up. And again, how you think about what does that communication look like? How are we going to create psychological safety between both organisations, or all of the organisations in that partnership, to mean that they can be honest and tell you when they've got blockers, or when things aren't going to get delivered, or when they need some support.
Yeah, psychological safety is as important with external as it is internal, and making sure your team will feel. And you saying your external suppliers won't tell you until something goes wrong. I would argue with many team members, they're not going to tell you that they're struggling until things go wrong. So it is about creating that safe space, which is where, when I'm working with teams, it's about being able to be open about where am I showing up at my best and where am I showing up at my worst, and how can you support me and what can you do, what's the language. So it's the same stuff really. It doesn't matter for me, but it's interesting. Again, I love doing these webinars, Tracy, because the more we talk, the more we go, oh yeah, I think we are absolutely saying the same things. So
Perfect. Were there any more questions, Jo? I can't see the questions, by the
no,
way,
I've not
everyone.
had
So
any
that's why
more.
I'm
So we'll
asking
give
Jo.
it a last call if anyone has got a question that we haven't
Or a
asked, that
comment,
they haven't asked, or a comment or something. Please drop it
an
in the
idea.
chat now. But if not, then obviously we'll give you our contact details at the end. Oh, there they are. So it's there's our contact details. So Susie and Debbie are both typing, so let's just give them a quick second. So Debbie, insightful, making me think and feel. Orion, awesome session, some fantastic reminders. And Susie's still busy typing. So while she's doing that, I'm just going to say thank you to those of you that have joined us today. And the most important thing to remember is that small, consistent actions are what generate the best momentum and the sustainable momentum. If you want to explore more on this topic, then we'll be sending you the focus and energy filter. And you can, of course, reach out to me, Jo Warren, for coaching and support in helping you to build a balanced business where focus, leadership and behaviour meet and create that lasting balance for everyone. Tracy?
Yeah, from my side, if you do want any structured support to embed change, create alignment, make sure these lessons stick, then you can contact me at Reforge Change, or hook up with me on LinkedIn. We've put our QR codes on there if you're not already connected with us. And I'm here to help make these tools part of your everyday operation. So next year isn't just about surviving each quarter by your fingernails. It's about making the whole year a win. And definitely look out for more details of the masterclass where I'm going to dive into that alignment reset tool in much more detail. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.